The answer to this is actually through meaningful reputation systems, and a big part of that will be via the use of soulbound tokens.
Web3 offers a brand new petri dish.
Our job is to buy great tech at great prices.
AI is also libertarian, right?
Enable use case that people haven't been able to do today.
The next hundreds of millions of players, they will come to the market through mobile.
My personal reason why I could be bullish in the next 12 months is
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Blockcrunch podcast. I'm your host, Jason Choi. I'm excited today to be joined by Gabby Dizon, the founder of YGG, a guild protocol that is looking to become the backbone of gaming in crypto. Now, Gabby is a gaming industry veteran with almost 2 decades in this space, and he was the founder of a mobile gaming company before coming to crypto gaming and becoming one of its most well-known proponents. So I've known Gabby for a few years now, and he's also joined us a few times on the show already. So I'm extra excited to have them as both a partner and guest of the show. As in this disclaimer, nothing we discuss on the show is financial advice. And welcome to the show, Gabby.
Thanks, Jason, for having me.
Yeah, so with this discussion today, I know we've done a few before. I really wanted to kind of tell the full story of YGG, right? About how you guys started and how you guys got to this guild protocol stage, because that's quite an evolution. So if I dial the clocks back to last cycle in 2020, 2021, I think we had Axie Infinity kick off basically the Web3 gaming hype, right? We saw crazy numbers that we don't really see today yet. At one point, we had nearly 3 million people every single day playing Axie, and that extended into a broader kind of metaverse hype. So for this cycle, it seems like gaming hasn't made as big of a splash. So I'm curious, like, what's different this time around?
The biggest thing is that there's now a lot of products that are more fully built out. A lot of games got their start after Axie showed the world that there was actually a viable business model within crypto gaming, right? Like most experienced game developers had not really taken crypto seriously before Axie, and so a lot of game developers got their start after Axie got big. And if you look at game development times, a typical game takes maybe 2 to 3 years, sometimes even more, to create. And so now we're seeing that generation of products post Axie come to market. And the most exciting thing about it is that there's not just one, but there's a lot of different games, different genres, different play styles that are all high quality that are coming to market.
So versus last time where it was mostly kind of P2E or play to earn, this time there's a lot more variety and it basically taken the past 2 years to come to market, right?
Yeah, that's right. I would say that there's also a lot of different experimentations on how to integrate tokenomics, tokenized assets, whether there's NFT assets or tokens inside games. I don't think that there is one game that's quite kind of cracked the model yet for how perfect tokenomics would do with the game. But that's the interesting part. We now have really compelling product. The market is wide open. I don't think that we have a leader in a category in the same sense that Supercell dominated free-to-play gaming, for example, or Riot on free-to-play PC competitive gaming, but I think we'll see one emerge in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to this point about specific games and what's interesting to you, but I like to kind of go back to the origins of YGG, right? Because the concept of guilds is very familiar to people in gaming, but they might not be to people who are just in crypto. But they existed before Web3, but you guys, I think, were the first to really bring that concept and popularize it in crypto. So can you kind of give us the backstory of how did you decide to start YGG, how it came to be, and then also we can talk about how many sub-guilds and members you guys have today after a few years of building this.
Yeah, sure. So my background is really as a game developer. I was part of the team that made the first game to ever come out of the Philippines in 2003. In 2014, I started a mobile game studio out of the Philippines. So we were making mobile games for iOS and Android phones. And it was 2017 that I came across Ethereum and smart contracts. We were already creating virtual economies inside of the video games that we have, that you purchase for in-app purchases. You're buying coins, you're buying gems, you're using them in-game. And smart contracts are very interesting because now you could program basically real value inside the virtual world. So I thought that was super interesting, and that's really what got me down the rabbit hole in crypto. And then in late 2017, CryptoKitties came out and popularized the non-fungible tokens. And when I saw the NFT, I was like, yes, this is the thing that's going to change games. So I was all in from then, joined the Axie Infinity community in 2018, had my first startup that I tried to pitch, putting NFTs in games in 2018. Failed to raise money from that, but I continued tinkering in games within Axie. I started breeding Axies and kind of interacting with the community. And interestingly, what really accelerated all of this was the start of COVID in 2020. So Axie had popularized, pretty much invented the play to earn system by putting a token that you could earn inside the game by winning, right? So it was like you were mining tokens by playing the game and winning matches, which had never been done before. And combining this with a new primitive, which was Uniswap, the AMM, where you could basically put any token and then match it on the other side with ETH, meaning that you could swap any token for ETH and then ETH back to fiat, meant that you could have basically a real-time exchange rate between any token and going back to fiat, US dollars, Philippine pesos, what have you. So combining those primitives was something that Axie was doing, and from the crypto natives were really kind of experimenting with that. But what really brought on adoption was in COVID in the Philippines, where a lot of people got laid off from their jobs and they were trying to find different ways to make money. And when word came around where people could earn money by playing this game, it really started to spread, and a lot of people were joining the Axie Discord from my country, from the Philippines then, which was really remarkable to see. They didn't know anything about crypto. They could play games, of course, but they knew that they wanted to earn money from playing games. But then in 2020, you needed to have 3 Axies to play the game and to start earning SLPs. So what happened was that communities formed around guilds with what is now known as the scholarship system. The interesting thing about this is that this is a community innovation. The Axie team did not actually create this. There's 2 ways that you can log into an account in Axie. One is by typical username password, and the other thing is with signing with your crypto wallet. And the community realized that I could give you, for example, my username and password. You could play my game, you could earn SLP, but you couldn't run away with the assets because you didn't have access to the crypto wallet or the underlying private key. And that created kind of a trustless lending system where we could match people who had a lot of Axies with people who were coming in and wanted to earn money but didn't have the assets to do so. So yeah, so this is where the scholarship system came about. Guilds started evolving, and this was the genesis of YGG.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that scholarship was a kind of organic development. I always thought the Sky Mavis or the Axie team pushed this themselves.
No, it was really community bottoms up, ground up.
Oh wow! And you guys basically productized that into a guild that allows you created a platform to allow people to come and really explore the scholarship model. Now it seems like the space has, at least for now, moved away from scholarships a bit, right? The focus on P2E is less. So how does that kind of impact, what the direction that you guys want to take in the future for YGG?
Yeah, even from day one, the vision had always been we wanted to match players with different opportunities in the metaverse. Whether you're a player, you're an elite competitor in esports, you're a creator, or other things that people can do. So the first model that scaled was scholarships, and I think people had really kind of equated scholarships to guilds too much. In that, when scholarships went down, people thought that the guild system also went down with it. But guilds are merely people who want to come together and play together in a social setting to reach common goals together, right? So if you think about it from that principle, it's never going to go away. People are always want to get together in a social setting, to do quests together, to get rewarded together, whether you're doing it by playing, by providing assets, by creating content or doing marketing. So that principle will never really go away. And that's how we've evolved YGG in the last few years as well. Even in 2021, we minted our first soulbound token, the YGG Guild Badge, to prove that you were a member of the YGG community. So it was a free mint, it only cost gas, and then it kind of allowed you a way to get into the quests of YGG. In 2022, we released our first quest, the Guild Advancement Program, which is a way to do quests in different games And once you completed the quest, you earned the Soulbound token badge, which is kind of your proof of participation, which built up your Web3 reputation, right? And this ideas about questing and reputation is something that we've really been iterating with through the bear market, and is much of the backbone of the platform that we have today.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into that as well because I'm very excited about this vision about the guild protocol when you first explained it to me. But before that, I guess going back to the point about guilds, because at the time when scholarships was a huge thing and people equated scholarships with guilds, it almost became commoditized. When we saw so many guilds, and then at one point there was like actually thousands of guilds. But then you guys remain very dominant in this space. So what was the secret behind that? Was it kind of the first mover advantage? Was it localization? Was it kind of innovations in the back end? What was the thing that kind of kept you guys on top?
So the core insight on our end was that, of course, there were going to be a lot of people that would put up guilds. We never actually operated a guild directly. From day one, we were a platform that was meant to serve guilds, right? That's why we called ourselves the Guild of Guilds. So some people tried to scale by basically hiring people to manage and recruit people that were coming in. And what we did was created a tech platform, gave access to that platform to guild leaders, managers, and have them recruit players and train them. And we provided the assets so that all they needed to do was recruit and train players. And we would split the revenue share between the player, the guild leader, and ourselves. So that allowed us to scale faster than anyone else because we weren't doing the actual kind of guild, running the guild ourselves, which is, I would say, like very manual, right?
What was the insight that led you to do that? Like why? Because at that time, a lot of people's first instinct when they saw games taking off in Web3 was let's go start a guild. But I think you guys were one of the only people who were really talking about, hey, we need to actually build this platform for guilds. So what was the intuition for that?
I think it was really building tech startups coming from the tech space. Like I've always wanted to build a scalable company, and of course, a lot of my previous experience was in game development. But it just really so there's two things that are important. One is that you cannot really scale community. Community needs to be from the bottoms up. So to scale a platform that serves community, you need to have community that can manage themselves. You give them the tools to manage and to grow. And you're the platform on top of that, right? So that is really the core insight that led to it. And that's still like what drives us today.
And I think another underexplored reason why you guys were so dominant was your insight into games, like what games would take off. You guys are always early to the next big thing. So like Axie, obviously you were one of the first adopters, and then even for Pixels, which is the big game this cycle, I remember you talking about Pixels a long time ago. So can you walk us through your process in terms of how do you know what games are going to go hot? Like, are there any common threads that you can observe between games?
Yeah, so we have two ways of evaluating games. One is top down, the other is bottom up. Like a lot of different either investment companies, VCs, or guild or DAOs, we have a team that talks to a lot of these games and trying to see which ones have a good probability of becoming big hits later on. And of course, all of us will probably have our mixed success there. Some of it we get right, some of it we get wrong. But the other one, which I feel like really is our edge, is our bottoms up approach to also determining which games are going to be dominant. So even back in Axie in 2021, we already made a bet in Axie. We already bought tokens. We had land, but our community just kept growing and just kept asking for more. This actually enabled us to double down and buy a lot more AXS tokens in between June and July, when AXS was ranging between $4 to $8. Now, a lot of people think that AXS already had pumped at that point from its launch at 12 cents. It was hovering around 60, 70 cents. But the community kept on telling us there was something there, even though we were already deep into it. So we doubled down in it and it reached above $100. So we were proven right there. And we see this as well with our community this time around. So Pixels is a game that's existed for over 2 years already. It had maybe 5 to 10K daily active users when it was still on Polygon. And our community really liked it. So we were actually able to work with them for 2 batches of the Guild Advancement Program, which meant that our players were already very familiar with the game. We had worked with some guild leaders and creators in Pixels. And when they moved to Ronin and things just exploded, it meant that we were able to support the growth. We were able to create quests that were relevant to our community. And we were also able to come in and invest at a very early valuation. Before it did its TGE.
Yeah, and when you say you work with games, I'm very curious. Like, let's use Pixels as an example. When you decided to work with Pixel, what was that engagement like? What do you actually help them with?
Okay, so the engagement is typically some form of helping bring organic community into games. There's a lot of talk on community building and user acquisition, and I think people really kind of confuse the two. Community building is not like points farming. Let's get a lot of people talking on Twitter as much as possible. Like if you do all of that social attention without the underlying interest in the game, that actually won't last. Especially if people were just there to make money. Once they make their money, they're gonna leave. We've always been around building organic community under the games, and so that's why even with the guild advancement program, the absolute numbers might not look like very high, but that's because we start from the bottom of the funnel up rather than top of the funnel down, which means that we look for people that are interested in the game. We form social groups around them, so guilds, communities, and then they do different things that make the community prosper. Of course, playing the game is part of them. Forming guilds is another part of them because recruiting people into the guild means that the retention is a lot more sticky. And then people become content creators. We created a Facebook group called Everything Pixels so that it'll be a channel for people who wanted to learn more about the game. We have an in-house content creator. And then we've created quests, several quests with the Guild Advancement Program. And we made a super quest, which is a very integrated type of quest to teach people about the guild system inside of Pixels.
And when you say quest, just for people who are not familiar, this is you're rewarding people who play the game with or carry out certain actions with tokens, right?
Yeah, that's right. So for people who do something within the game, once they reach the objective, they get rewarded. It might be in in-game resources, it might be in reputation with soulbound token badges, and it might be rewards with tokenized assets, whether it's tokens or NFTs.
And how much of this was from lessons you learned in the Web 2 gaming world? Because when I look at Web 2, I'm not sure if there are kind of quests or guilds that kind of work this hands-on on games. And most of the times I hear about social communities in Web 2 games, it's always just like pretty organic, maybe like a subreddit that someone started. So like what are the biggest lessons from Web 2 carrying over to Web 3, and what are the biggest differences there?
Well, early on, I was part of a World of Warcraft guild, and then that really showed me what different people working together with different skills can really combine to form something that is greater than the sum of its parts, right? If you've ever been part of the guild before, of course, you have the tank, you have the carry, you have the healer, you have the mage, you have the rogue, then you have someone who's probably keeping like the guild master. All of these roles means that it's a lot more enjoyable to play together and kind of help together with the whole experience. And coming into Web3, a lot of my early experience in community building is actually informed by Axie Infinity. Axie is very misunderstood because even then, 2021, a lot of experienced game developers looked at the game and say, "Oh, this is a very simple game. Like I could recreate this in a couple of weeks." But a lot of the innovation was actually because of the bottoms-up innovation that was happening. As I said earlier, scholarships weren't created by Axie; it was created by the community. So having these permissionless assets and helping people build value on top of them was really the greatest value that I learned from being part of the Axie community.
And I guess working with these games, right, how much would you say the success or the ability of these games to reach escape velocity is because of YGG, or how much of it is kind of you guys discovering this game early enough before that escape velocity happens? Because I'm certain there's an element where you guys are the reasons why these games took off, right?
Well, as we like to say, we like to discover games that we think are going to reach escape velocity, and then we push them along so that they reach it a little bit faster. I don't think that YGG has the ability to completely make a game because the game itself has to be good. I think the approach towards community building has to be right in the first place. But what we have the ability to do is to search across all of the games in Web3, find the ones that we think has the best chance of making it, then applying what we do, organic community building, um, acquiring assets in front of our treasury, and then building the questing and reputation layer to really help that strong core community and allow that game to scale by getting it to acquire more users and then turning them into core community members.
And I guess the final question touching on the new games before we move over to the Guild Protocol side. So Pixels and I guess now Parallel, or some people know them as Prime, are two of the more well-known games in Web3 this cycle, right? So are you able to share with us maybe another up-and-coming game that you guys are keen to partner with or that you're personally excited about as well?
Yeah, wow. There's a bunch of them. As I said earlier, right? There's a lot of super interesting titles now that exist in Web3 within different genres. I think one that's pretty underrated is Block Lords. Block Lords is a strategy game that has been building for the last almost 3 years as well. And then it's also like there's different roles for people to play in the game. It's like heavy economic element. So that one is pretty interesting.
And this is already a live game.
Yeah, it's already live. You can now download, you can play it, and yeah, there's a YGG region in that game.
Got it. So if you're listening to this at home and you're looking for the next Axie, this could be it. So I definitely recommend you to check it out. I'd love to talk about the Guild Protocol side now because that is really the big update for you guys. So for people who maybe haven't checked into the Web3 gaming scene, they might still know YGG as like a guild or a guild of guilds, and they associate it with P2E. But the big move for you guys is actually the transition into a guild protocol, which you kind of explained to me in prior chats. But for people who are kind of first hearing this term about guild protocol, can you explain kind of what exactly is this and what was the impetus for this?
Yeah, so people have always thought of us as a guild inside of games, and as I said earlier, like we were a guild of guilds, we were a platform, but we're transitioning that narrative towards a guild protocol, like between the assets, the community, the questing and reputation, and putting the guilds on chain. This is what makes up for a guild protocol, meaning that we bring communities together, we put them with a group identity on chain, allow them to have access to assets that can enhance their experience, and then bring them into these games via quest, and then they can obtain rewards and reputation from them. So this is what makes up a guild protocol.
Yeah, and I always thought it's very interesting that most of the guilds who were also around last cycle, they are exploring different ways to evolve their narrative as well, and a lot of them kind of just end up being L2s, right? So we're not going to name specific ones, but I think listeners probably know already. They just basically turn into L2s, one of many L2s, and you guys are really the only team that I noticed that's really doubling down on kind of building services and the protocol for guilds. So can you explain why this is, and have you guys thought about also becoming maybe an L2 as well?
Very good question, and we've received a lot of questions on this. Again, like every project has the reasons for doing so, but I think becoming an L2, becoming a part of the infrastructure narrative, comes with a healthy valuation bump for a lot of projects that are pivoting, which probably works out for a lot of projects. But for us, we've always had a clear vision for where we wanted to be. And I don't think you could say that having your L2 is right or wrong. It really depends on your vision and your strategy, right? And for us, think of us more as like social infrastructure that connects people, players, with things that they can do in Web3 that can have them earn crypto and own assets. And in that sense, we want to find the best experiences for people to do this in a social setting. So forming groups, forming guilds. Do you want to play at TCG like Parallel? Do you want to play a farming game? Do you want to play a hardcore MMORPG, right? And that means that it doesn't make sense for us to have our L2 because we are constantly seeking what the best experiences are, and they might be on any chain, they might be completely different genre, and we optimize towards making it easy for the players that we have in our community to connect with these experiences.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate the difference between building, gaming or guild-related companies or protocols than building like a L2, L1, right? The skill sets are completely different, distribution's completely different, and what you guys, the dominant player before, was your insight into games, your network, your community, and it's not kind of building L1s and L2s. So I was very surprised, I guess not that surprised, to find so many guilds becoming L2s because of the valuation bump. But I feel like if you are the category leader for a new category, you probably get a much bigger bump than if it's one of 800 L2s out there. So I think strategically that makes a lot of sense as well. But I think I'd like to kind of dive into the Guild Protocol idea a little bit more, because for people who have been around the DAO circles, they might think, hey, this sounds like DAO tooling, right? You're creating things for people to create communities on chain. Isn't this basically DAOs? So what are your thoughts there? Like how is kind of what you guys are building different from DAO tooling projects out there?
Yeah, definitely not similar to DAO tooling, and we don't think of it as a SaaS business. We think of it as basically a network effect business, which is really the core of crypto, right? We bring communities together, and a lot of the strength of crypto itself, whether it's DeFi, gaming, social fi, is really having different communities kind of bump together and kind of compounding the network's effect that they have into something that is greater than itself. And this compounding of network effects is something I've been like really obsessed with, even from the start of YGG, which is why you see us partnering with a lot of different groups. Of course, we partner with games, we partner with different protocols, we even partner with what people would think as competitors that may have, for example, questing features as well, like games.gg or a Mon protocol. We don't see them as competitors. We see them as a way to kind of magnify each other's network effects. And this works, like, if you go down to more practical level, what does that mean? I may be playing a game that, and I'm earning, for example, tokens from this game. I'm earning tokens from this L1 or L2 that the game is on, and then I'm earning tokens from YGG. That's what you mean by the compounding of network effects. And this can't just be like very mercenary in that I'm earning tokens here and there. Once you have these communities actually working together, and a very strong example of this is Ronin, Pixels, and YGG, then you really see the magic of crypto. You see the kind of magic growth, organic growth that you see, that you basically have to pay for in Web2 user acquisition.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty amazing story in crypto, right? Because if you look at the Axie Infinity player chart and the Pixel player chart over the two cycles, it's almost like they basically activated a bunch of users, and then this time around they basically re-engage the same users again. And it's very hard to find that in crypto, because a lot of similar attempts in crypto and DeFi, for instance, you just turn it into massive farming communities, right? People just go from this project, farm all the tokens, they move on to the next. This is the only time I've seen people kind of re-engage the same group of users for another product, and these are kind of organically playing the product as well. So what do you think is the main difference there? Like, what was it about the kind of Axie to Pixel story that differs itself from like DeFi farms, for instance?
Yeah, so if you look at the Ronin community, of course, that a lot of the early players came from Axie. Uh, a lot of people there have been through Hell and Back, been through the Ronin hack a few years ago, but Ronin has kind of kept really building the community and given them different kinds of experiences. Not all of the experiences have been perfect, but there's kind of a strong sense of solidarity around what is a differentiated product stack. So like you have like the Axie games, you have now the Ronin network, the Ronin wallet, the launcher, and that enables you to be a platform for other kinds of content to come in. And then combine that with a really strong focus on emerging markets, where I think Ronin has done the best in serving both Southeast Asia and LATAM, for example. You have a lot of users from these regions that are very loyal to this community, and actually like view the Ronin community as kind of a trust filter to see what experiences they would rather play. Compare this with a lot of the experiences in DeFi, in meme coins, in farming, where it's basically very PvP. You may make a lot of money, but knowing you know that you can also lose a lot of money. And this is just the way most of crypto works. And for the Ronin community, they've really actually cultivated it to be positive sum for a long period of time.
And so would a chain like Ronin be like an ideal, I guess not customer but user for the YGG guild protocols? And if so, how do you guys usually work with someone like Ronin?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What we do is that we kind of build our organic questing elements on top of that so that it can bring communities together. Having strong communities like what YGG has through the questing process means that you can bring players down the funnel if you acquire users via Web2, or if you have players who are, I would say, like not yet core dedicated users doing quests and achieving the reputation, soulbound token achievements allows them to be more dedicated players, more knowledgeable about the games, be able to get the rewards, which means that it's more likely that they will stick with these games long term.
And on the concept of soulbound tokens, right? Obviously, this was something that I think Vitalik wrote about that you've talked about a few times already, and it seems like it's pretty crucial in this guild protocol idea as well. For people who are not familiar with the term, can you explain what it is and how do we use it in a game?
Yeah, so a soulbound token is basically a non transferable token. And this is really important because it allows us to use soulbound tokens as reputation markers. So, for example, I may have a soulbound token that says I participated in this game, which means that, oh, I'm a fan of this type of game. You can have soulbound tokens that say that, oh, you went to this protocol, or you traded this much in DeFi. So it's kind of permanent reputation markers. And if you look at Web2 and how all of the commerce is made, the underlying thing that really makes online commerce work, which makes Facebook, Google so valuable, is cookies, or being able to get data about a person, which gives them targeted offers. All right. So this has turned Facebook, Google into trillion-dollar companies, but all of the data that we give these big companies are owned by them. And with soulbound tokens and with crypto, it allows us to own the data that we have. We choose the data that we show. We choose if we want to sell it to others. And we choose to participate in kind of the value capture that comes with commerce. So if you look at where I would say like airdrops are happening right now, farming across different players, reputation is actually a big problem because of like anti-cyber measures, large scale farming. So you actually don't know who the people you are that are rewarding. You don't know if they're actually like good users of the protocol. You don't even know sometimes how to define what a good user of the protocol is, which means that you're diluting the rewards between genuine users, duplicate users, or people that are set up to professionally farm your reward system. And this is still a huge problem, not just in Web3 gaming, but in all of crypto. And the answer to this is actually through meaningful reputation systems. And a big part of that will be via the use of soulbound tokens.
And I think this is really interesting because if you think about what a social network is, it's really just a digital network where people put some of their own personally identifiable information on, and then so that they can find other people maybe with similar interests and interact with each other. So that is kind of like social network, and that's now being transformed into social fi in a crypto context. But if you zoom out a little bit, that's also exactly what you guys are doing, right? Since day one, it's building really a social network, and now you guys are adding that ID element. And I know before you kind of briefly mentioned maybe social fi. So in terms of other verticals that YGG protocol can expand into besides gaming, are you guys looking into social fi as well, or do you see any potential use cases there?
Yeah, so what we're doing is putting people into groups, and then groups where people can basically embark on activities together. So it would be relatively trivial, and this is actually what we want to encourage people is to build in, for example, social elements like putting a chat group in top of our on-chain guilds, right? There's different quests that people may do. Some of them are games right now where most of the activity is happening. But now there's a lot of different ways to earn money in crypto, including deepen and different source of work. So this is something that we're looking into, and all of this is something that we've labeled as the future of work, which is basically everything that our guilds are doing that are not games. And this is kind of a very kind of heavy source of investment for the future of YGG.
I find it really fascinating how I feel like a lot of the developments in Web3 guilds in the past few years are almost like accidents, right? You mentioned that the formation of scholarships is almost like an accident, where it's not pushed by the team itself. And then this future of work thing seems like it just so happens to be a perfect use case for YGG. So I guess if you think back to the past few years, what are some of the happy accidents that kind of surprised you in terms of, hey, I didn't realize that people could use YGG for this, or I didn't realize people could do this in gaming?
I think there are so many happy accidents, honestly, and a lot of it is because if you think about the principle of having primitives to build on, right, which is what crypto is built on. Building those primitives means that other people can innovate on top of these primitives without asking you for permission. And I think this kind of got lost in Web2 closed social networks, building these billion-dollar companies, right? And it's nice to get back to Web3, even with the original innovations with Axie and then Uniswap with the AMM, which meant that I could permissionlessly create any token that could have market value and not have to pitch through Binance or any other centralized token to list me. And now there are, for example, companies that are airdropping tokens based on having YGG badges. If you prove that you're good at this game, then you can have an airdrop. Or if you have a certain YGG badge, it can show up as an item inside the game. I think that's really the magic of crypto and creating a lot more of these primitives. And what we have to add to that are our soulbound tokens and the on-chain guild, on-chain group primitive that we're creating as well.
And that's what you mean by building network effects for a protocol, right? Because once you have that community of people with kind of their own attributes and on-chain history, that's very, very hard to replace. You can't just come in and really just take that community away. But I guess in terms of like competitive threats, how do you guys think about that? Like, what are the biggest potential threats to something like YGG protocol?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the only like real threat that we can have is if someone can build this network effects around groups faster than we can. Ultimately, it will be your community that is your moat around this. And the way that you can scale community is via the building of primitives. So I think if we neglect our community and if we neglect the primitives or try to capture them in too centralized of a manner, that's probably how we can lose out long term.
Yeah, and then I think in terms of the final note on the community side, because I think you guys have really mastered this. I think there was a video on Twitter that was passing around a while ago about like a YGG event in the Philippines, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of people, and someone just made the comment, "Oh my God, Gabby is so powerful." So how do you guys actually create engagement with the community for so many years, especially because in the middle between the Axie wave of games and the Pixel wave of games, there was a pretty long lull in all of crypto and Web3 where there wasn't much to do.
Yeah, so we've always been very consistent with our community. Instead, our job is to onboard and to educate. We're not here to give you handouts. We're not here to give them money. But there are so many people who are hungry to contribute, going back to the different roles a person can play. If you look at the YGG community, there's a lot of game testers, game moderators, content creators, UGC creators. People just really want to be able to apply their own talents, to be able to learn more, contribute, and get recognized and get paid for that. So that is kind of a very innate human need that we tap into. And honestly, like that is the source of our success.
Yeah, and I think that that's really all what crypto is about. So, Gabby, with our final question, I'd love you to outline what are some things that people can look forward to with YGG and how can they get involved if they want to?
Yeah, so we are launching a very gamified sort of staking soon. We've teased this online, like hold YGG and eat stake. We were not really impressed by what we've seen in staking so far, which is very much favors the whales, where all you have to do is put in a bunch of money and you get equivalent money out. We've always been playing about with the idea of how can capital and labor work together to have an optimal effect, which means that you don't need to just have money. You have to also do tasks within the system that can contribute to the network. And some people have more money than time, some people have more time than money. So, how can we get the people who can do the quest working together with the people who have money to achieve the optimal effect? So, yeah, that gamified sort of staking is coming soon. And then after that is our release of on-chain guilds. Again, it's a way to create a crypto primitive for groups to put themselves on-chain with the components of having a multisig, a guild badge, an identifier for the guild, and a list of guild members with different permissions. And yeah, so that's what we're focused on this year. And then once that releases, we've always had quests and reputation for individuals. We're gonna enable group quests or ways for people to enjoy games or different types of work in crypto as a group.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited for this. I think especially with the social fi kind of interest lately, I think this is a really great timing for this. So for listeners who are interested, you can check out our previous episode about social fi as well. Well, Gabby, thank you so much for coming onto the show. It was a delight.
Thank you, Jason.
Hey, thanks for supporting another episode of the Blockcrunch podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you're listening to this on. It really helps us a lot. Or if you prefer YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube as well to not miss an episode. I'd love to hear from you guys as well, and I personally make sure to read every single comment on YouTube or tweets that are directed at me. So feel free to leave a comment there. Let us know what project you want us to bring on or what trends you want us to talk about, or tweet at me at Mr. Jason Choi or at the Blockcrunch on the platform previously known as Twitter, currently known as X. And thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you in the next episode.